Okay, so for today's lesson, we're going to continue practicing with 3D models. Only this time, I'm not going to give you an isometric that I want you to recreate the 3D model of. I'm going to give you something of an orthographic view. I will model one, and then you will do one for homework. Now, these orthographics are a little bit different than what we've worked with already. Here we see a front view, kind of like the front view we're used to. There's some kind of, this one's a little bit different. This dimension is a little bit different, but for the most part, this is kind of what we're used to in a front view. This is actually a bottom view, not a top view, a bottom view, which you can infer is, looking at the shape from the bottom. If you look at the hidden lines for this cylinder up top, you'll understand kind of, this is a bottom view. Now this is just a different representation of this object. So I'm going to use these two views to recreate the 3D model. Kind of, I'm challenging you guys to look at these shapes a little bit differently, really try to understand the connection between ortho and iso and like be able to recreate it on whatever representation you're given. So let's get started. I'm going to start by just drawing the front view. I'm going to leave out any hidden lines. One note on this hole up here, I'm going to leave that out. I'll explain why at the end, but I'm just going to ignore this hole here. Now, as I draw the front view, I'm going to leave out these holes because I'm going to put those in after I've extruded my shape. So let's get started. Rectangle, I'm going to start at 0, 0, and I'm going to draw this bottom section here. So it's going to go 5 by 0.5. And then I'm just going to put in some construction lines because those will help me out. I'll be able to offset a little bit. I'll put a construction line here going through the middle and another construction line here that I'll use to offset to set up the centers of these two circles. So let me offset. Let's see by how much. So this is up 1/2 inch. This center line here is up 1.5 inches from the bottom. So 1.5 inches minus 1/2 inch is going to be 1 inch. Ooh, why is it not letting me select that? Let's try offsetting again. 1 inch. Okay, here we go. Now this is going to be where these two lines intersect. These two center construction lines intersect. Is going to be the center of these two circles. Now let's figure out the dimensions of these two circles. So the inner one, we're given this dimension of 1.997 ream. Now what does that mean? That means, if you ever heard the term ream, or to like ream someone out, it means like open something up or chew someone out, yell at them. In the context of mechanical things, you use a tool like a reamer to open something up. So basically what this is saying is you want to keep this hole between the range of 1 to 0.997 when you're creating it, and then ream it out to open it up. If you were machining this, you would probably drill it out to be 0.997, go on the smaller end, and then you can always make it bigger. For the sketch, we're just going to draw it at 1 inch because we can get it exactly 1 inch, whereas in the real world, it's not as easy to get things exactly to be 1 inch. So we'll type in 1. Oops, I messed up. This is also diameter 1 inch, so that's going to be 0.5 as our radius. Now this outer circle, we don't get a dimension in the front view for it. But if we look at this bottom view, we get this 2 inch length, and the width does line up just like it would if this was the top view instead of the bottom view. We have the cylinder, and its width is 2 inches. So our diameter is 2 inches. Draw a circle. Our radius will be 1 inch. And then we'll go to the outermost points. We'll draw lines. We'll trim up a bit. Take care of this, all that. And there we go. Now, I'm not going to take care of the fillets that you see here just yet. Now, there's a way I can do it right now before I extrude, but there's also a way that I can do it with my 3D model. And I'm going to do it with my 3D model because I want to keep edges and corners because they're going to help me when I'm setting up these two holes. Edges and corners, you can always draw construction lines on them, but curves are a little bit harder to deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude this. Let me first make it so that my construction lines are not visible. And then what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and try to join all of this. But it probably won't join it all as one object. It'll probably have three. Yep, three. Now, if I try to extrude this, just using extrude, let me go into conceptual so we can actually see a solid object. If I try to extrude this, it gets a little annoying. I can extrude this cylinder here, and I can extrude this section here, but I actually need to draw a bottom circle and join it to be able to extrude that. But what I really want is just to extrude this intersection here. And if I try, extrude, and then maybe select everything, let's see if that works. Oh, let me just try extrude. Select all of it. No, that doesn't really work the way I want it to either. So I would need to, if I wanted to use extrude, I would need to follow a lot more steps to draw in the bottom circle here and pull this up using extrude. Draw the cylinder, extrude it, then draw a circle on top and intrude using press pull. But like I mentioned last time, you can use press pull not just for intrusions, but also for extrusions. Press pull is a little bit different than extrude when you're trying to use it for extrusions. You're not going to select on the object. You're going to select in a bounded area that you want to pull up. So you always want to select in a bounded area, never on a line. That's really important, never on a line. It generally will work without joining. There are some instances where it doesn't, and it looks like they updated this new version of AutoCAD to work in a few less scenarios, but it still will work in this scenario. So I can click in here, and I can pull up just that bounded area, which is super convenient for this. Okay, so let me extrude by the depth. I'm not going to do the full depth, 2.5 inches. I'm just going to do this middle area, 2 inches, and then I'll take care of these little extra bits that this cylinder up top goes. And it's just really easy. I'll show you guys how to do it. It's really simple to do. So I'll extrude this 2 inches, and then I'll select in this bounded area as well and extrude it 2 inches. And we kind of see this thing starting to take some sort of shape. Okay, cool. Now what I want to do is I want to pull this cylinder out a little bit further in each direction. Let's see by how much. So this is 2.5 inches. This is 2 inches. The difference is 1/2 inch, so it's going to be 1/4 inch on each end. So I'll show you how easy this is. I don't have a sketch up here now. I just have this cylinder. But if I type in press pull and I select this bounded area, even though there isn't a sketch, I have a bounded area, it will allow me to pull it up and out. So I can type in 1/4 inch and do the same thing on the bottom. I can select this bounded area. Be very careful to make sure you're not intruding by accident. Make sure you're pulling out before you're typing in a number, that it's actually pulling out of the shape before you type in 1/4 inch. And there we have it. We have that kind of pulled out segment. The really nice thing is it makes this whole thing one object. The cylinder is one object, even though it's 3 separate extrusions. Really convenient. All right, now before I do anything else, I'm going to rotate. I'm going to rotate 3D this shape. I want to make sure I select both objects because I'm working with 2 separate objects right now. Select my axis of symmetry, 90 degrees. Great. Because this is going to make it a little bit easier to work. Now I have the front view, top view, right side view exactly where they should be. You'll notice that I've left behind these lines because when you use press pull to do any action, it will leave the lines behind, unlike extrude, which gets rid of them, which is kind of not a friendly thing about press pull. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of the 2 holes over here. I'm not going to do this one up here like I said before, and the reason for that is in order to do it, you would need to create a plane up there to work off of, and that's something we're not going to get to in this lesson. We're going to do it probably next week or the week after, but I don't want to go into that totally brand new different topic. So we're just going to leave that hole out. Okay, let's draw holes up here. Let's start by drawing some construction lines. Those are definitely going to help us here. So I'm going to draw 2-point construction lines, one over here, and one over here. And what I'm going to do, oh, it restored the other ones, which makes sense because I've turned my construction line layer back on as I'm working with it. And then I'm going to offset them in each direction. Offset. First, this one's going to be 1 inch. This is going to be in 1 inch. And I want to rotate a little bit to make sure it went in the wrong direction. We're not working on a weird plane or anything. Okay, that looks good. And then we're going to offset this construction line. And it goes in, let's see here. We got to do a little bit of calculation. So this is 3.5 inches between these. This is really annoying that they did it this way. Okay, this is 2.5 inches. And this is 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches divided by 2 is 1 3/4. So this section here is 1 3/4. So this is going to be 2.5 minus 1 3/4. So that's going to be 1.5, 3/4 of an inch. Okay, great. So let me offset by 3/4 this construction line here. And then I know my hole is going to fall right in that space. So I'll draw a circle, make sure it's highlighting blue, and then I'll set the radius to be, let's see, where do we have the radius of these two? Okay, great. This is going to be a 1/2 inch drill, 2 holes. 1/2 inch, that's diameter. So our radius is going to be 1/4. And then we'll press pull and just pull it down. I'm not even going to type in a number. I'm just going to pull it down all the way through, and it puts a hole there for us. Fantastic. Then we need to do the same thing on the other side. There's probably an easier way where we could have done this twice. There is an easier way where I could have just done this twice in one go, but we're going to talk about that again on a future day. I'm hoping to not overwhelm you guys just yet. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the far end on this side. Draw my construction lines first, then offset first by 1 inch. Be very careful not to select the wrong construction line. I actually don't need to offset this one because it went all the way through. But I guess what's done is done. I'll just leave it there, and then I'll offset by 0.75 this line here. I'll draw a circle with a radius of 1/4 inch. I'll press pull and put the hole all the way through. Great. Let's turn off these construction lines now. And now all we have left is our fillets. Now, there's a couple ways you could have approached this. I think the one that, if I asked you to do this without instruction, I think a lot of us would have just drawn circles and trimmed them up and extruded with that, like after you did it in the front view, but then you wouldn't be able to put in the bottom view, these fillets here. So let's first, before I explain how we're going to fillet these 3D edges, let's take a look at what our actual fillet dimensions are. So up here it says unmarked fillets and rounds, 1/8 of an inch in radius. So that means all the dimensions that aren't marked are going to be 1/8 of an inch in radius. Over here we see this is 1/4 of an inch in radius, which means this one's going to be as well. These two corners in the front view are not marked, which means they're going to be 1/8 inch radius. These over here, these 4, are marked. It's a 3/8 of an inch radius. So this unmarked is really just these two corners. Everything else is going to be, these 4 are going to be 3/8, and these 2 are going to be 1/4. So let's take a look at how we fillet these edges. I want you to type in fillet, and you're not going to go to fillet because this first fillet that you see, that's for 2D filleting. We want to do 3D filleting, so we're going to type in fillet edge. That's what we're going to use, fillet edge. And it's going to prompt you to select an edge, but you don't want to start selecting an edge right away because you want to first input your radius. If you look at the command bar, you're going to have chain, loop, or radius. You also could just press down. If you don't have this in your command bar, you could press down on your keyboard and you can get to radius and hit enter. We want to enter the radius we want to achieve. So I know I want my radius to be, for these two corners, to be 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to type in 1/4 of an inch. And now I will select the edge that I want to fillet. And I'll select the other edge I want to fillet at that size. And I'll hit enter. Press enter again to accept the fillet. And it just, bam, just like that, it puts a filleted edge right there for me. Really easy, really convenient. Okay, let's take care of these two over here. So I'm going to go fillet edge again. And this time I'm going to select the radius to be, since I'm doing these two corners, that's going to be 1/8 of an inch. I'll select the two corners. I'm not hitting enter. I'm just clicking on them. And then I hit enter. And then I hit enter again. Okay, now I need to take care of these 4 corners. And I'm going to be done. So fillet edge. What's it going to be? 3/8 of an inch. And I'll select all the edges that I want filleted. This might give me a little bit of an issue. Sometimes when you have fillets in 2 directions intersecting, it'll give you an error. So let's see what happens when I try that. If that doesn't work, I have something else we'll do instead. No, it did not look like that worked. Let's set the radius to be 3/8 of an inch. There it goes. I don't know why I did that weird thing the first time. Maybe I misentered the radius. Okay, good. That's much better because it's giving me that preview. When it gives you that preview, that means, you know, it's going to work. I hope. Okay, here we go. Finished product. Right now, though, this is 2 separate objects. We want to get rid of these lines. And we want to move these 2 objects. Now you can just press move, hit enter, select both objects, hit enter again, select the base point, and just slide this guy over. And then you can go ahead and delete these pesky lines. You could also actually combine these 2 into one object using the command union, which is like join, but except it's for 3D objects. So union, hit enter, select the 2 objects, hit enter again, and now it's one object. So I can just move it all as one, like this, delete it, and I have my finished product. Okay, so that's it. That's how you use the fillet tool. That's how we do it. We got some more practice in. Now you guys are going to try with the model I have attached, and I will see you guys on Wednesday for a new topic. Be sure to watch the mini lessons that I've attached this week because they are super useful. They're particularly useful this week.